B. Consent agenda, warrant number 27, 2/27/23, number 28, 2/27/23. Payroll register number 9, 3/2/23, number 10, 3/9/23.
Make a motion that we accept the payroll registration and the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept payroll, to approve the payroll warrant, register and the AP warrant. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. Second one is a quick claim deed for 32 John Street.
I brought this up to the board at the last meeting. This was one of the properties that fell into foreclosure. The previous owner's son did come back and pay all the back taxes. So all the back taxes have been paid on this property. The individual that was foreclosed on is deceased. And it was his wishes that the property be deeded to his daughter-in-law. And so you have a quitclaim deed here for Lori McManus for 32 John Street.
All right, looking for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve a quick claim deed with no covenants to Lori McManus of 32 John Street. Any other questions? And as the town manager said, everything's paid to this point. All in favor? 4 in favor, and Mr. Bean will abstain. All right. All right, acceptance of the meeting minutes from March 6, 2023.
Move to accept.
Second is read.
All right, I have a motion and a second to accept the meeting minutes from March 6, 2023. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor? We'll go 4 in favor and 1 abstention. Letter E, old business, selectmen's concerns from the preceding meeting. Mrs. Webb?
I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Gopian?
None.
Mr. Moody?
None.
All right. Mr. Bean wasn't here, sorry. You'll get it next time. Item of communication, Mr. Town Manager?
I'll just update you on the other 2 properties that are in tax foreclosure right now. 20 Park Street is one of them, and I've talked with Ken Lexier, and they have started the eviction process on behalf of the town for the folks that were living there. And so as that is completed, we hope to be able to move and secure the property as it is considered to be a dangerous property. 232 Bagley Road, that's another individual that is deceased, and I've made several attempts to contact his children who live in Vermont. I went as far as contacting the town office at their last known address in Vermont, and it confirmed that the address that they have for him is the right one for him, and I actually have a phone number that I've left several messages on that I have not had any return calls on. So I'm going to continue to kind of do the private investigator thing to see if I can track down any relatives that might be interested in this property. If nothing, I'll bring it back to the board with some recommendations probably in April. I wanted to, at the last meeting, we talked about a letter of support for Madison Electric Works as they seek to apply for federal funding through what's called congressionally directed spending, as they're seeking for funding that will help them purchase the solar array if they choose to do so. So it seemed to be pleasing to the board to do that, so I did create a letter. If you wanted to put your signatures to it, I would recommend that you make a motion to authorize it before you put your signatures to it.
I thought we did that at the last meeting.
I don't think you made a motion, I think you just said there was no objection to it, but we didn't sign the letter anyway.
Okay.
So,
All right, so looking for a motion for a letter of support for Madison Electric on the solar array.
Make a motion, we provide electric,
Send the letter.
yeah.
All right.
Second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second to send a letter supporting Madison Electric's buying the solar array.
No, you're
No,
really
no.
supporting the seeking of federal
Seeking of
funding
federal
as a
funds.
grant.
I apologize.
Yeah.
All right, any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries.
And that's all I have for items of communication.
Thank you. All right, new business, number 1. Somerset County District 2 caucus to elect budget committee member.
We've done this every couple of years, and that's why Commissioner Johnson is with us tonight. He brought over the paperwork from the county. For the last 7 years, I believe, I've represented District 2, which is Madison, Anson, Starks, Smithfield, Mercer, on the Somerset County Budget Committee. I'm willing to serve again, but my term ran out. And so this has to be an election from municipal officers of towns within the district. So you are 5 of those municipal officers. So you can nominate me to be on this, and if you all vote yes, I'll record it, give it back to Mr. Johnson, and he'll take it back to the county, and hopefully I'll be able to participate in the budget process. So really, I just need a nomination from one of you and a vote on it.
All right.
I'll make a nomination that we nominate Tim to serve on that commission.
We need a second?
Sure.
All right, I'll make that a second. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Seeing none, all those in favor? All right,
Excellent.
you have been nominated.
All right.
All right, number 2, discuss sale of 55 Weston Avenue for housing development.
So some of you may recall that back in the summer, we had developers that went by the name of 55 Weston LLC, that they were going to go to main housing. They went through the planning board process, got their project cleared through the planning board. They have now gone through Maine Housing Authority and have the project cleared through Maine Housing. They've been given a notice to proceed. This is a project that will involve 2 apartment buildings with a total of 18 apartments at the site on 55 Weston Avenue. And back in July, you should have a copy of it in your packet, but back in July, we had a survey done splitting the land into 2 parcels. And so the parcel up in the northwest corner, which is identified as Lot 2, that is the parcel that they are seeking your signatures on a deed to transfer to them. They need to have that deed in hand as they continue to go through the financing process to get this done. But my understanding from talking with Sam and Kara is that 80% of the work is behind them now. And so they have contractors, local contractors lined up to do some site work on this in the spring. And of course, they need to have the deed to that piece of property to do that site work. So I have a copy of a municipal quitclaim deed that refers to the sum of $1, and for that portion only of Lot 2 to go to 55 Weston Avenue LLC. And so I leave it in your hands.
All right, looking for a motion to approve.
Because I'm gonna be the talker tonight, I'll make a motion that we approve the deed for the sale of 55 Weston Avenue.
All right, looking for a second.
Second.
All right. Any questions, Mr. Agopian?
Yes, on this now, they're just gonna own half of it, right?
Did I give you the copy of the deed in your packet? Oh, I apologize, because I sent that after I got the packets, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, to answer your question, I apologize. So this is everything that the town owns right here.
Right.
And this is split up into Lot 2. That's what's being sold, is just Lot 2.
Okay, so they're not gonna park cars and,
That's correct. All their project is within those boundaries.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? Mr. Moody?
Yeah, I'd like to see that when he's done.
Okay.
This is what came out when I printed it, so.
Oh,
This smaller version, because I know you got better eyes. So this is everything the town owns right now, this Western Avenue right there.
Yeah.
So this is the portion that you're selling, just that.
This corner.
Just that corner up there.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. And I'm signing that one.
So, if you can, that's the whole deed.
Okay.
If you can get both pages safely to the other end, to Sally,
All right.
I'm trusting you.
We can't go this way, Tim, and then go back this way.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're gonna lose papers here. All right, number 3, the fiscal year 2024 budget review, which we all have. All right, town manager.
You want me to give this to Dawn, or do you need to take
I'm
it?
gonna see her in the morning if you want me to.
If you could, just let me put my name on this.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sharon. All right, so to get started, let me just say thank you to the members of the advisory budget committee that could attend tonight, kind of follow along. I'm using this legal page sheet here, and I don't think I messed myself up, but I may have. I think everybody literally is on the same page, but in between meetings, we got updated numbers from workman's comp. So there may be a few $100s difference in some of the workman comp from what you've seen before. But I think that's the only real difference that we're looking at here. I'm going to refer to this small sheet that I have given the selectmen in the past, and this is a small payroll sheet, which gives my recommendations for pay changes this year. And I've done some editing since the last time we met, and we've consolidated just about everything to a 5% increase, including town manager salary and road commissioner salary, with the exception of the union contract, which is a 3% for this year. And mainly that's because the board authorized a substantial increase for the highway workers in July of this year, after the budget had closed. So, with that being said, what I would propose to do tonight, and I think this will be a good exercise, is I will try my best to go through line by line and give a brief explanation of each line and how we came to that number. If there's questions, we'll try to take them tonight. If there's discussion that the board feels merits more discussion, we can move that to the agenda of the 27th. For example, whether or not to have a full-time code officer. That might be a discussion that the board wants to have in greater detail. And also discussions about police coverage. That may be another one that the board wants to have in greater detail. But I think for tonight, I'm going to try to go through all 12 pages. And if there's questions, we'll go. But I think what I'll do is just kind of, and if I go too fast, please stop me. But we'll go through every line on the first page, and then I'll stop and see if there's any questions or any comments or anything that anyone wants to go back to. Does that sound agreeable?
That sounds good to me. And so just remember, this is the town manager bringing his budget to us, and we are going to go back over it again on the 27th, and then again on the 5th of April, I believe it is.
That's right. So for the members of the budget committee that are online or here in person, the final review that actually goes to town meeting has to be approved both by a majority of the board and a majority of the advisory committee at that April 5th meeting. That'll be a 5:30 start traditionally.
And remember, if anybody is on the computer and they want to be heard, please signify somehow.
Yeah, you can
Ding our bell.
you can unmute and just ask a question, but don't scare me. So. All right, so page 1 at the top of the page, and again, you're dealing with a slight handicap here in a colorblind town manager. So I color-coded 3 of the columns. So the column that's colored, that's called the FY 2003 budget. I don't know what color that is, green or something, but, yeah, okay. See. So stop laughing at me, Kathy Estes. I hear you. So that budget is the original budget that was passed at town meeting last year. So then there's a column that says carry forward, and then there's the yellow budget that in the middle there. That's the budget that was approved at town meeting, and certain items were carried forward for certain budget lines. So this is what I consider our operating budget. The yellow line is what we've been operating on this year. The next line is year-to-date, and these year-to-date numbers are through the end of February, but not all categories in February are in there yet. So it's about 66, 67% of our budget. And then the last column, which is probably in that blue or purple category, that's the proposed budget. This is what we've come up with, talking with other department heads, taking a look at certain things, and this is what we're proposing. So that being said, the first 2 lines are the general government personnel lines. So this is essentially your town office staff, the town manager and the other members of the staff. And so the proposed budget for that is $285,000 with a $4,000 overtime budget, or an overall proposed budget of $289,000, which is almost a 7% increase. One of the things I'll keep referring back to is whenever you're looking at the budget change in the percent all the way over to the right, it's the purple column compared to the beige column, not the yellow. Sometimes the yellow will be different because of carry forward. So we've spent about 67% of the $270,000 that we are budgeted this year, and with increases across the board, we're recommending $289,000 for pay for the town office staff. The next set, which is called employee costs, these are your HR costs. Travel and trainings, we're budgeting about the same for travel, really since COVID and Zoom. Travel has been minimum. Training, we have new staff members, but the costs of training have gone down with the availability of things on Zoom. Subscriptions, we do have trade magazines that we refer to, and we keep that a minimal amount of $150. Dues, these are dues to be part of the Tax Collectors Association, the Treasurers, the Clerks Association. Those are small $35 to $50 dues. Meals, we budget about $250 on meals in case we do something special at the town office. If we do something, we purchase items for Christmas. We also do meals during the budget advisory meeting. Those are the minuscule ones. The big ones are the FICA for $25,000, health insurance, and the ICMA match. Those are the larger scale items there at $25,000, $30,000, and $45,000. So you'll notice that some of the budget numbers have changed. We have 2 employees that do not take health insurance. And so the personnel policy that was approved this year allows for them to take a $7,000 contribution to their retirement. So it's not cash, it's to their retirement. So that's why you'll see that the ICMA match is higher and the health insurance line is lower. We do put a line in there for unemployment because every once in a while we get a claim. We haven't had any in general government, but we put a line in there, but we didn't budget anything for it. And then workers' comp is $750. And that's up a little bit. Workers' comp is tied to wages. So when wages go up, workers' comp goes up.
So if it's 630 in yours, that should be 750.
Ah, yes, you have one that says 630?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it should say 750. Yeah, so I did make that mistake. All right, so we'll catch that a couple more times. All right, carrying on, under supplies, you have office, postage, and public meetings. Our general office supplies is basically what it takes to get the work done, whether that's coffee or paper or other materials that we utilize in the office. The postage, this is what we pay for postage. And usually there's two big times of the year. One is when we send out the tax bills, and the other is when we have to send out certified notices for tax liens. And so those take up two big chunks of the postage line. Public meetings, we have a budget set aside for that. That's rarely utilized. Then you have your utilities. Heating, fuel is probably the biggest change there. As you've seen, if you look past, in years past, we've always tried to keep about a $6,000 budget. So far this year, we're already up to $9,000. And it's just the reality of heating fuel that everybody is dealing with. If you look way over in the corner, you'll see a little indication that says $3.15 a gallon. I did sign a purchase agreement with Bob's Cash Fuel this coming year that locks us in at $3.15 a gallon. I believe that the cash price on the window is still about $3.80, $3.90 at this point. So we use, on average, over the last 5 years, 3,000 gallons of heating oil at the town office. So that's why I calculated that budget figure of 9,500 based on that $3.15 a gallon. Water and sewer is about the same. We do anticipate a small increase in the water district's bills this year. Telephone is about the same. Propane gas, we have a 100-gallon tank at the town office that's used to fuel our generator. In case power goes out, that generator runs on propane. Other repairs, we budget about $3,000 this coming year for computer repairs. If you see, this was a carry forward line. Traditionally, we've only budgeted $1,000. We carried forward $5,000 to put that line at $6,000, and we've used about $5,000 of it. And that was basically to do computer upgrades that we had identified over the last couple of years. And we just did another $3,000 of computer upgrades that aren't in this expense yet. Equipment, this is repairs to equipment, and one of the things that triggers this line is our heating equipment down in the basement. We have an old System 2000, which is a fairly modern system, but every once in a while it needs some repairs and service. So that's probably the biggest service or repair item we have. And then money we set aside to do repairs to the building. And one of the things on the radar right now is if you are in the assembly room, you'll see all the soiled ceiling tiles. We do have some snow that's melting and leaking in the assembly room at the town office. So then if you come down right to the very bottom line that says general liability, and you go across there and you see a budget number of $43,500, that's what we pay for our insurance for general liability. And we just got the new bill, so that's a fairly accurate number. Our bill is actually over $50,000, but we split it between this line and then what coverage we have for boards and committees. Because if you have a board and committee, it's always good practice to have liability coverage for that board and committee. All right, that's page 1. Any questions? And the other thing you'll notice I did is I screwed up on the stapling, so you have to turn it over when you turn the page.
So on the heating fuel,
Yep.
is there anything that we can do to reduce that amount? I mean, is that pretty standard? I mean, seems to be a lot of gallons for a place that.
So I asked Bob's Cash Fuel to give me the last 5 years on this building, you know, all the other buildings that we have, and I looked at it and I was like, boy, I wish I could say that maybe it's getting warmer and so we're not using as much of it. But when you look at that average, 3,000 gallons is pretty much what we go through. Now, if you want to replace windows, that would probably help because the windows in that building are pretty old. And we do have some ARPA funds set aside for that type of work. But that's a project that we probably can get to.
All right, I think that's something we should look at and see if we can reduce that.
Certainly. So if no other questions on page 1, if you flip over to page 2, now you're into our contracted services. Legal, we've used very little of our legal line this year. We'll use a little bit more of it as we're doing this eviction process. And so thinking that we may use it more in this future, I raised it from 1,000 to 2,000. MMA dues, that's Maine Municipal Association, not mixed martial arts. And they've already given us a bill for about $5,200, so that's what that number is in the budget. Bank fees. These are fees that Bangor Saving charges us each month for post-analysis. And that's all I know about those bank fees. It's post-analysis. And so it runs $100, $150 a month. And it's been in our budget for years. The auditor, you'll see that we budgeted $14,500, but traditionally we've only spent $11,500 for our auditor. This is R.H.R. Smith. We've always kept a little bit more in there because of the federal grants that we've received. When a town spends more than $750,000 of federal money, you're automatically triggered to have another audit. And that audit costs about $2,500. Just fun fact, when Tammy Carrier went to work for R.H.R. Smith, this is what she does for towns all over Maine, is these special audits for towns that have had more than $750,000 of federal money that they've spent. Last year, we kept it at $735,000, but we've still got more money to spend this year, so I anticipate we'll have to have one. Bangor payroll, this is the service that we do, that we run payroll through, and typically it runs about $4,000. Tax mapping, we do this every other year, so the last tax map update was 2021, so I anticipate that probably in the fall of 23 we'll do an update to our tax maps, and that costs just over $2,000. Software support, this is Trio. This is the municipal software that we use for everything, registering vehicles, taking tax payments, doing assessing. It's all through Trio, and this software has steadily gone up. You can look back in 21, it was 23,000, 21,000, 22,000, 23,000. We anticipated to be about 26,500 this year because we are adding a sketching program to it for assessing. Register of Deeds, the Register of Deeds charges us $19 every time we submit something down there, and when we put liens on and take liens off, that usually adds up to about $600 to $6,500 a year. The Section 125 plan, this is also known as a cafeteria plan. This is the fees to administer this, so that when you get your W-2, any money that you've contributed to your retirement comes off of your taxable income. The postage meter, this is a machine that we have in the office, and this is a fairly new lease. So we're looking at a lease of about $1,400 a year. Credit card service fee, that's just what Bangor Savings charges us for that credit card. Mowing, this is for the property around the town office, and this is a new contract that we just entered into, a new 3-year contract. So that price is reflective of that contract at $3,000. General code book, anytime we do an ordinance change at town meeting, it has to be recorded and printed in paper and on the website, and so they charge us $1,500 just to maintain what's on the website, and then any changes are additional. Looking ahead to town meeting, I don't know if we're going to have a lot of ordinance changes, but you can see we've spent $4,000, $5,000, $2,000 over the last couple of years. Janitorial, we did change janitorial companies midway through the fiscal year. That's why you see an increase. So the increase is reflected in the new contract with a new janitorial company. Advertising, the only advertising that we really do is if for job openings. And the town office pays for all the advertising for any department that's advertising. So if highway is advertising, we run it through this line. Photocopiers, this is a lease. So we have some updated information there. The town report, that's the money we simply pay for printing the town report. IT services was new last year, and we put a lot of carry forward into this, mainly because we were moving away from utilizing the county and then computer improvements to provide all of our IT services. And we were just getting by on a server that was kind of built together with spare parts. So we contracted with Main Technology Group last year. And so this will be the first year that we officially have this line in the budget for $13,500. That pays the lion's share of that Main Technology Group support group. So they came in and built us a brand new server, and it's their server in our building. So they will maintain that server, but part of that maintenance is the ongoing payment that we're paying them. So we finally decided it was time to bite the bullet, and because we could not rely on the level of service that we were getting and the amount of trouble that we were going to have if we lost it. You can see that we've spent probably about $12,000 so far, just under that. It was a guesstimate as to what we thought we were going to spend this year. That's why we carried forward that money. So then the last couple lines are simply equipment purchases. You saw a previous line for equipment repairs. These are purchases if we need anything in regards to office equipment, or if we need to purchase something for the building. So that's what those two line items are. And then the last one is public relations, and we've spent money on that in the past, and that generally may be, buying something to recognize somebody for the work that they've done or something to that effect. So that, at the end of page 2, is the final administrative part of general government. Are there any questions on that? All right.
So go.
Yes, the salary's not in here, right?
Yes, that was the very first line of page 1, is the salaries that are on this sheet here. So where it says page 1, 285,
Yep.
that's derived from this sheet here, where you looked at the town manager, admin assistants, finance, HR, deputy clerk, part-time, and treasurer clerk. That totals up to 283,342. So that's what generates that number of 285.
Okay.
All right, move on to
Page 3.
page 3.
All right. So we're still under the article of general government, but now we're moving on to other parts of general government. So the first section is the planning board. We set aside a $5,000 amount to pay the stipend for the planning board. Over the last few years, they have gone to a system where they get paid $50 for every meeting they attend. Ultimately, we have 7 planning board members. We've been working with 5 or 6. And so we've run anywhere from $2,500 to $3,500 over the last couple of years. I imagine we'll be closer to $4,000 this year because we've had good attendance and there've been a good number of meetings. We do provide training for planning board members, and they have taken advantage of it. We used to have advertising because we used to have an ordinance that said we have to advertise a public hearing in the paper. And we changed that ordinance so we don't have to. We can, but we don't have to. So we removed the advertising line from the planning board. Then there's FICA, and then there's another workman's comp number. So that gives you that total number of $57.25 for the planning board. Code enforcement. So what I've done is I've initially prepared a budget for a full-time code officer. That's reflected in that salary of $52,000, and then a little bit of travel for the work that he does outside of the office. Then there's the FICA and the retirement, workman's comp, any supplies, health insurance, and then that last $5,000 is a contracted planner. And over the years, when we have not had a code officer that was experienced, we've leaned on Kennebec Valley Council of Governments and Joel Greenwood. He attends some of our planning board meetings. He provides some guidance. He was very helpful on the initial work with the 55 Weston Avenue project. And so he basically bills us his time as needed. Now, in theory, going forward with a full-time code officer, we may be able to eliminate that expense. The next section is boards and committees. This 11.2, that's the money that's raised at town meeting to pay the selectmen stipends. Then there's FICA, workers' comp, and insurance. I mentioned our liability insurance. This is where the other part of that liability insurance goes for $7,000. Elections, we pay for supplies, contracted services, and then ballot clerks. Ballot clerks are paid minimum wage, which is $13.80 an hour. And the rentals, I talked with Tris, and we raised that a little bit, mainly because the state requires us to use their machines, and then they charge us when they come and calibrate the machines. And so we have a new machine that the state needs to calibrate. Elections, and then the last one is tax assessing. You've seen that's been over the years in the mid to upper 30s, and it's up to about 45,000. This is Shirley Bartlett with Bartlett Assessing Agency. She is our contracted assessor. We contract with her for 75 days out of the year. And for many years, she's been at $500 a day, and she asks for $600 a day going forward. So that's where that $600 a day times 75 days is 45. Now, she gives us a list quarterly of all the days that she's put in. So we may not reach that 75 days if it's a relatively easy year. So, any questions on page 3?
So, moving forward, the next two, the ambulance and the police, and then fire, I mean, these lines are pretty much the same as what they are.
I can go faster if that's what you're saying.
Well, I just don't, I mean, I don't know how many times we can talk about office postage and gas, I mean,
Yeah.
so let's get through ambulance and police, I guess.
Okay. So no questions on page number 3. So what I like to do is every time there's a yellow line at the bottom, that's the end of an article. And so what shows up on town meeting warrant is the article. So right now the proposed budget is $736,175, and that's an 8.3% increase over that number way over there of $679,250. All right. So page 4, ambulance is pretty straightforward. They base their fees to each town they serve based on population, and so they've adjusted for population, and I did confirm with George Demchak that $81,000 should cover it for this year. Police contracts, this may take a little bit of explaining, forgive me if you've heard this before. So over the years, as a budgeter, I have tried to keep the town's portion in the mid to upper 4s. So you can see 450, 440, 480, and last year 480. That's the town's portion. That's what we raise from taxation. But that's not the actual police budget that they prepare for the town of Madison. That number is usually higher than that. Over the years, we've set aside 450, 480, and we've struggled to fill those positions for Madison, so we've gone without deputies. And so at the end of the year, what we actually spent was less than 440 or 480. And the sheriff would give us money back. And if you go all the way back to 7 or 8 years, the board set aside that money to help us fight our battle with Madison Paper in court, where we spent over $200,000 to not have to give this abatement. So that's what we utilized that for. But that case is now closed, and the structure of our contract with the county has changed. So this year, our policing budget for Madison was $625,000, but we only raised from taxation $480 because we had money left in the bank at the county. And so the county has basically used that to offset. And so for that time, we had 3 officers, 3 patrolmen, I should say, a school resource officer, and an administrative person. And you've heard the sheriff say many times that Somerset County was the lowest paying law enforcement division in the state. And so now they're looking to rectify that this year. So when you see that number of 480 go to 589, 2 things are going on here. Actually, 3 things are going on. One is we've used up all of our reserve. So that's the real budget. That's the budget that the sheriff created. And he created it to have 3 patrol deputies and 1 administrative person. No school resource officer. And that school resource officer is right now an empty position. So if you were to add that school resource officer, you'd be up north of $700,000. So discussing it with the sheriff, seeing that there wasn't a school resource officer working right now, I had them put together a budget that had 3 patrol officers, including the vehicle, and an administrative person. So for 1 patrol officer to be dedicated to Madison, it costs about $170,000. Pay, benefits, cruiser, gun, all the equipment, it's about $170,000. That's up about 25% compared to last year. Now, I know that the county is in negotiations with their unions right now, so I'm not gonna get into specifics, but I will tell you that the cost that they are negotiating will be about 25% higher, mainly because of pay increases. So, before we get into fire, does anybody have any questions about police coverage?
So is that something we should have on the agenda for the meeting?
If everybody's understanding and they all think it's okay, then, but,
Mr. Gopi?
So our choice, either pay it or don't have a police department.
if you pay it, you won't have dedicated coverage in Madison. And the way they've run this schedule this year, they've filled every shift. It's not midnight to 6 a.m., Donnie French, I see you shaking your head back there. And that is an issue, because back when we did have our own fire department, it was 24 hours, 7-day-a-week coverage. But we have these call-out periods now. So if you were to say no to this and take all 589 out of the budget, then you would be saying to the county, treat us just like Anson, treat us just like Norridgewock, and come when you can come. But the county will have 3 less funded positions for deputies. And they're already shorthanded throughout the county. All right, so if there's no other questions on policing, let's go to fire. I'm glad that Chief French and some of his captains are here to help us if there's any questions. So the top line on 05, 06, 01, 01, personnel fire. So yes, we have a volunteer fire department, but they do get paid per call. And for many years, what they were getting paid was barely above minimum wage. So over the years, we've tried to raise that, and we've been getting it up to about $17 an hour is what they get paid to respond to fires. Now, in your sheet, you can see that for firefighter pay, Chief is recommending we move that from 17 to 21. That's a pretty big jump. That's bigger than any of the other departments, but they have good reasoning for it. They feel that their firefighters are just as important, if not more, than any other of the town employees. And you know, if we pay our highway guys to start at $21 an hour, then maybe we should reflect that in our firefighter pay as well. Firefighter pay is tricky because we really don't know how many hours they're going to put in. It depends on how many calls they go to. What we base this budget on is about 2,600 hours total. That's all the firefighters that respond, fill out the forms, and get paid. In addition to that, there's the stipends that are paid to the chief and deputy chief and so forth. So those two figures, the on-call at $21 an hour is about $54,000. The stipends are a little over 19. That's where you get this budgeted number of $74,000. Will we hit that? I don't know. It all depends on how many calls we get. So that's an increase from 62 budget line in our current year up to 74. As Mr. Vinziano indicated, the rest of these employee costs are pretty germane when it comes to travel and training. We do have to have testing for hepatitis B. We do have to have physicals. We do have to pay unemployment. We've run into this in the past where a firefighter worked for us for a short period of time and then we were lumped in on an unemployment claim. And workers' comp is up. That workers' comp number of $5,200 is up from 36. Supplies. Office supplies and postage, we really utilize the office postage for fire right now. Washer extractor product, this is product that's used in a heavy-duty washing machine that's over at Company 2 in East Madison. That's really designed to get a lot of the toxins out of their gear. Uniforms, we're going to be spending some more money this spring. Don is very good at ordering uniforms and trying to get grant money to fund at least 1 out of the 3 sets of turnout gear that he does. And then you get gas and diesel. Typically, we never run much more than $600 or $700 in gas. We're already near $600 with 4 months to go. That number will probably exceed 1,000. That's why I'd like to budget 1,500. Diesel, same thing. We've never really run over 2,500, but we're already there. So we'd like to move that number up to 4,000. We had used carry forward in the past. And you see at $3.79 a gallon, that's another number that was negotiated with Bob's Cash Fuel for all of our diesel purposes. Electricity is pretty much, these are the CMP costs for the East Madison fire station, and they're pretty consistent. Propane, we were worried about the price of propane because propane is what heats the East Madison fire station and runs the generator over there. So we thought we'd put some carry forward to it. The cost really hasn't been that severe for propane, and we've negotiated a price of $1.59 a gallon for propane going forward. That's why that number is down to 3,300. Telephone, please disregard that $3,000 number in carry forward for telephone. That was a typo on my part. Telephone's pretty much standard at 900. All right, vehicle maintenance. We do have a new vehicle, but all of our old vehicles still need regular maintenance every year, including inspections, sometimes tire replacement, which can be very costly. We would normally add carry forward to this amount. As we did last year, we went from 8 and added 4,000 carry forward to have a line of 12. So that's why we're adding a couple thousand to that for $10,000. Computers, we still continue to try to do as best we can to upgrade the computers in the fire department. The building, that was another area that we would normally put some carry forward in, so we budgeted that up to 4,000. Most of our building work, Dan Bosworth and his team does a very good job over at Company 2, doing some of the maintenance and updating things there. And then there's maintenance for the AED. That's the thing that they can jolt you back to life with, that they have in town buildings. So then there's this new category down here for $4,500. And I'm gonna let the fire chief help me with this, and maybe Danny or Don can answer this. This has to do with a line for hose maintenance. And this is a new line. And can you talk to that a little bit?
Every year, our hose has to be tested, and it's just too much. We just don't have the time to test it all. So we've got a company that'll do it for, I believe it's 32 cents a foot. They take it off the truck, they test it, they take the air out of it and re-put it, pack it on the truck. That's something that's gotta be, that's something that OSHA requires every year. Yeah, it's gotta be certified. So if the bottom line is, if you're fighting a structure fire, you don't want the hose to blow after the team's gone inside to put the fire out. So that's why it has to be tested every year. We even have to test the inch forestry hose, which we have thousands of feet of that. So it can be very costly, but we just don't have the time to test all this hose. It takes days and days and days. So that's why I included the line this year, to make sure we're up to snuff with that.
Thank you, Don.
So there's actually a company that comes and does that?
Yeah, we'll go right out to Madison Selectmen. They'll do every truck that day. And I thought they did a heck of a job. This is the first year we've ever got them.
And then the only other line on that page is for radio maintenance, and that's pretty standard repairs and to maintain the radios. Does anybody have any questions on that first part of fire on page 4? All right, if not. So top of page 5, we're continuing, we're still in the fire department. The fire crew takes care of their own mowing, janitorial, and plowing. So those numbers are pretty standard. The IT, this is the small portion of the big IT bill. That is, we send a little bit over to be paid for out of fire, and we send some to be paid for out of public works. Extinguishers, these are important, and so are SCBA's. And so those are the breathing apparatus that the firemen use, and this is just a small amount of money set aside for any maintenance of those. Looking down the road, we will have SCBA's that need to be replaced, and that's a much larger capital expense. Fire equipment purchases, we've got that at the pretty standard 5,000. Radios, I've tried to make that consistent with what we've spent over the years. Foam is another new line that the fire department wanted to add this year for about $1,000. This is a new, or at least a newer way of purchasing it. And Don's been able to get some grants that, cut the cost in half on that. And then there's just any purchases for computer equipment. So then there's a small $1,000 line for public relations each year. The fire department likes to have a get-together that they recognize the work that they've done and recognize and appreciate each other, and so that's what that line is for. So your overall fire department budget is up from 114 to 139.8. And then let's just get through animal control and we'll see if there's any other questions. All right, animal control, we had a discussion with the advisory board last year about this, and the amount that we're paying is well below what we're budgeting. And that's mainly because our animal control officer lives here in town, doesn't have to travel too far. He responds to about 20 calls a month. I checked this through the sheriff's log. They get 20 animal calls a month. Many of those animal calls are repeat calls. And so I'm just going to recommend that we reduce that budget line to $5,000 from $7,500, because 2 years ago we spent $1,600. The year before we spent $2,600, and we've yet to spend $600 on animal control yet this year. So to me, I don't understand why we want to maintain a $10,000 budget for something that we're not going to spend much more than $5,000 or $6,000 on.
We are answering every call, though, correct?
We do, yes. And if that doesn't get answered, you bet I hear about it. So
I know.
I'm
I
sorry.
know.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, right.
Better you than me.
So again, we're down to another yellow line, so that's the entire article for public safety. Does anybody have any questions about that on page 5?
No,
Kathy?
no.
The question I have is about animal control,
Wait,
okay?
no.
During the whole COVID time, the animal control officer was not necessarily required to go out and do the warrant and serve people who hadn't licensed their dog. I'm gonna guess that that has probably been revoked and now he needs to do that.
Yeah.
And that's very time consuming. So that would be costly if he, that's what I'm just saying, I don't know, but it used to be that during the whole COVID time, they took that away.
Right. And that's probably why that number's so low
Mhm.
back in 2020, 2021.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine it being more than $5,000 going forward.
Yeah, and I don't know how much time he would have to put into it. Alls I would know, I feel like I know, is there's probably a lot of dogs that have not been licensed for the past few years. So to get that back up to snuff, it might be taking a little more time to do that.
Thank you. Any other questions on page 5?
That's something we'll check on, whether they should be doing that, whether he's doing that.
Well, I'll report back on what his process is.
All right,
Page 6. This is a pretty easy one. This is utilities. There's only 4 categories. So storm drains. Over the last couple of years, we have budgeted enough money in this to pay for Madison's portion of the sanitary district's efforts to clean, repair, and replace storm drains. So you can see it, $19,000 a few years ago, $44,000 last year. They have a bill that's coming to us this year. That's why we haven't spent any money in that category yet. But you're seeing that I am proposing to double that to $100,000. And that's because at first we were looking at a project on Preble Avenue from the end of Preble out to the VFW, which would be a complete rebuild with all the sanitary work. Sanitary's not ready and they're not able to do that in 2023. So I shifted our attention to Bean Street. And if you've been down Bean Street, it really can't take too many more winters as it is. It's smaller, and they are working on a process where maybe we can try to get sewer, water, and repave it done by fall, August, September of this year, 2023. So to do that, I'm putting aside $100,000 from taxation, and I'm also gonna match it with some of the money we have left over from our ARPA funds. We have about $280,000 left unspent in our ARPA funds. And those are the American Rescue Plan funds. So that's my plan for Bean Street, is to utilize this and go back to a process that we did many moons ago, when, really before the downturn in Madison paper. When sanitary did a project, they borrowed money, did the project, and then they charged the town for storm drains. And so we would pay our storm drain part back to the sanitary district. That's what I would intend to do with this money here that I'm setting aside. The other item is waste disposal. This is basically the fees that we pay for the front gate and the back gate at Waste Management. We just negotiated a new contract, which will be a 5% increase. And so that's why that 275 is up to 290, which is about a 5% increase. Hydrants, this is what the water district charges for fire protection. I anticipate that to go up a little bit this year. So we've factored in about a $15,000 increase. And streetlights, the majority of the money that we pay for streetlights goes to Madison Electric. We have a small portion that goes to CMP, and this seems to be fitting. One of the things that does help us is that as both CMP and MEW change to LEDs on some of their Cobra head lights, the costs do go down, but I've had a difficulty getting this number right over the last couple of years, and I think 64 to 65 is the right number. Anybody have any questions on our utilities? You're cruising here. All right. Page 7. Now we start into a couple of pages on highway department, public works. So again, referring to the small sheet that has the salaries on it, you'll see that reflected in the total number, including overtime of $391,500 for highway pay. This includes a road commissioner, a foreman, and four full-time workers and 2 part-time workers. So that's in the highway personnel line. Again, employee costs, drug testing, meals. We do pay the guys, especially during the wintertime when they are out, to get meals, lunch, breakfast, whatever the need may be. The retirement, the FICA, health insurance. We do have more people taking health insurance this coming year. Unemployment, we have had to pay some money for unemployment for part-time workers in the past. And then our workers' comp number is adjusted there. Office supplies, they get by with very little. Uniforms, we do pay for their uniforms. Safety equipment, that's glasses, boots, that sort of thing. We do pay up to a certain amount for their safety equipment and tools. Even though it only shows we've spent $55 in tools, we will spend that tool line this year. And then gas and diesel were the lines that we built up because of carry forward with the price of oil. But this coming year, we're figuring we should spend about $5,000 in gas and $45,000 in diesel. Right now it says we've spent $28,600, but in that warrant that the board just signed, there's another $6,000 diesel bill. So we've really spent about $35,000 out of 40 with March to go. And of course, we run these trucks year round for other work. But wintertime is where we really add up the diesel bill. Utilities, electricity is pretty much the same. Heating fuel, now the library and the highway department are no longer on number 2 fuel. They are hooked up to natural gas through Summit. And this is our first year. So we've gotten bills for $56, we've gotten bills for $3,500. All depends on what we're using. Now the highway department still has a waste oil heater. But the number of places that are using or giving waste oil has really gone down. And so we have not run our waste oil heater much this winter at all. So I'm guesstimating that we probably need to bump that heating line up to about $7,500 6,100. As you can see, we've already spent 6,100 of what we budgeted. Water and sewer and telephone are pretty much static. Any questions about the first half of the highway line on page 7? All right. Seeing none on page 8. So repairs and maintenance, and if you see, I've bumped just about every line there. General maintenance, vehicle repair, equipment repair, building repair. The main reason for this is Billy Pierce is retiring. And he's given us his date, he's not going back on it, he's done in August. Billy Pierce over the last 20 years has kept more equipment going up there than you could put a number on. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to put a number on it, is what we've got to send out to fix what Billy always fixed in-house. Now, he's very good at rebuilding hydraulic motors. So if you ever take a tour of the shop and you go in there in a tool room, he's got 4 or 5 hydraulic motors on the shelf that he's built that go in this rig, and they go in this rig, and they go in this rig. This is what we're losing. And hopefully we can hire or train a mechanic that will be adequate, but for budgeting purposes, I just think you're going to spend more money in the coming year on that. The next line is janitorial. That's under contract with us. They have the only dumpster that the town uses. And so that's up there. And then there's their portion of the IT budget. So now I'm going to get into something that's a little bit complicated. And if you haven't been here over the years, it'll throw you for a little bit of a loop. So winter roads. This is where traditionally you always budgeted for salt, calcium, and a little bit of road plowing that we do in Solon, just as an agreement with Solon. For the most of the years that I've been doing budgets, we have authorized through the state and through the town that salt and calcium be paid out of our TIF budget, our economic development budget. I'm proposing that we start weaning off of that, mainly because Backyard Farms is coming up on, they have a 20-year TIF, and they're coming up on year 18. They've changed general managers 5 times in the last 8 years. So I'm not sure what the future of Backyard Farms holds. I'm not saying anything that should be taken out of turn, but I don't think that we need to rely on as much as we did coming out of TIF as we used to. So what I'm proposing in this budget is a small weaning step. The real budget for salt is $75,000. And so far this year, we've spent $63,000, and we probably have one more load to go. The typical budget for calcium is about 15 grand. So what I've put in this little blue or purple column is 25,000 for salt and 2,500 for calcium, and the remainder would be paid for out of what we have in TIF. But I'm just trying to move this over. This is my budget, it's my proposal, and so you tell me what you want to do with that when we get to that point. I'm just explaining it at the moment. Contracted plow in Solon. I believe this is the upper end of the Solon Meeting House Road that we plow all the way through. I'm sorry, that they come down and plow all the way through, and they charge us for it. Summer roads, this is where you have your signs, your crack seal, your gravel. We always used to add a little bit of carry forward to the gravel line. Then contracted services for mowing, this is roadside mowing. The town does not do its own roadside mowing, they contract with someone for that. Equipment rental, if we have to rent a sweeper or something like that. And special projects, we've had the special projects line in here for years. And this is another line that we always would add carry forward to, just so if we had an opportunity or a need came up to fix something, we could fix it quickly. Whether a sidewalk, this year you're going to have a lot of sidewalk repairs to curbing that's been dug up. And so that's where we'd spend some of that. As you can see, we already spent that amount that we budgeted. We budgeted 2,500, added 10 carry forwards, so we had 12,500. We've already overspent that special projects line for this year. So that brings you to the end of page 8, which is the end of Public Works. Does anybody have any questions or comments or thoughts about that? Do you want to discuss the salt sand thing in more detail at another meeting?
Probably should.
All right. So that should take you to page 9, recreation. All right. I think Mr. Bean and Mr. Vinziano are going to give you a report on how much each softball costs. So, all right, we break recreation down into 2 categories. Stuff that goes on up at the Preble Avenue field, and most of that is the maintenance of the Preble Avenue fields. And the rest of it is what goes on throughout the year for recreation, including the summer rec for kids, youth basketball, youth baseball and softball, and youth football and that sort of thing. So pretty much that top line there that says subtotal Preble Avenue, that's all money spent on those fields up there. And we have money for personnel, we have money, of course, with the FICA and whatnot, grounds, buildings, mowing, and equipment. And you see I've bumped those categories a little bit. If you look back into past spending, this is where we use carry forward or we moved money from one account to the other within the recreation account to be able to do some significant upgrades to the fields that seem like they constantly need to be done. The second section there, the lion's share of that is recreation, and that $44,000 includes not only what we pay minimum wage students, but also what we pay for stipends for certain directors of certain categories within the rec budget. And of course you've got your dues and your FICA and workman's comp. We used to pay significant amount of dues for things like Cal Ripken and projects like that for baseball, but we've been out of those for years.
Tim,
Yeah.
how did we double rec supplies from 5,000 up to 10? What's that all about?
Well, we would normally put carry forward in that, and usually we would spend money. If you look back to the COVID year, back in 21, we spent $13,000
Yeah.
on that. This year, we've already spent $7,500 in rec supplies. So the cost of those supplies and what's needed is continually going up, and we would usually either use carry forward or we would rob from other lines that we weren't spending to spend for those supplies. So I wanted that. We've done it so many times. I wanted the budget number to reflect it
I would just wonder how come it doubled? That's all.
accurately. Yeah, it's really more accurate than it has been in the past.
Yeah.
And part of that is also reconditioning. We do spend quite a bit of money on reconditioning of equipment. Our liability insurance, mowing, we do take mowing out of 2 different accounts just to cover the costs, and we usually try to utilize as many individuals that we can to do mowing and not contract it out anymore. Of course, our ball fields have portable toilets. We do provide swimming lessons. We utilize busing during the recreation season, and also we pay for umpires and referees. So that's where your total recreation budget comes in, just about $87,000.
We're not doing the swimming lessons this year.
Well, we would pay for swimming lessons in the past, but the folks that run the totem pole, Sandy Beach, the folks that run Sandy Beach offer it to us for no
Our
charge.
salaries are in the personnel.
That's right.
Okay.
Right. Whatever we pay for someone to give swimming
Right.
lessons is in personnel, but Emden used to charge us for swimming lessons. But so that's it for recreation. Cemeteries. What I've done is I've added some money to the cemetery budget to help continue to keep our momentum for small repairs and maintenance. You can see in the past that we've spent, really less than $2,000 a year. This year we've spent $4,200 in Forest Hills. I'm going to recommend we continue to spend money in Forest Hills, because if we don't, we just get further and further behind there. There's also maintenance other that I'm going to recommend we spend about $5,000. Either Bobby Bishop does some maintenance on all of our other cemeteries, or we have to hire somebody, contract somebody out, like Jim Elias, to do that. So that's why those 2 categories are what they are. Any questions on page number 9?
That cemeteries represents 10 cemeteries, correct?
11.
11.
So we're at Forest Hills and 10 others.
Okay.
All right, page number 10 takes you to the library at the top. One thing I noticed when I was going through this today is I cut them a little tight on personnel. Because if you look at our personnel numbers on the library, they come in around 73.3, and I've got 71.5 in there. You know, I think we can probably stay within that, but that's pretty tight. And FICA is the same. So basically, one full-time worker and a few part-timers at the library. That makes up those costs. Office supplies. Traditionally, they do spend $10,000 on books and magazines. Julie does a good job of giving us reports, and the number of the foot traffic and the number of books and magazines utilized this year is up compared to the last couple of years. Electricity, heating fuel is the other thing to keep an eye on, because the library has also been converted over to natural gas, so they're getting bills from Summit. And just like highway, some of those bills were really low, some were really high, depending on usage, and it'll take us a year to figure out really where we're at with that. Water, sewer, telephone, pretty much the same. We did bump up the general maintenance of the building. Julie's got a lot of projects going on right there that she's done a great job of getting grant funding for. One of them is to replace the windows up in the dome. When they replaced the roof, they got close to the windows and realized you could blow on these windows and they'll fall in. So we're getting that done with some grant work, but she wanted to add some general maintenance in there for whatever's not covered in that. Building, software, janitorial, they have their own maintenance person over there, Bob Bishop, and they pay him out of this line, and then their security system. So that's the library. Community programs are broken up into 3 different categories. There's the local folks that we give money to. There's a new one that's asked for funds this year, but I'll go through these quickly. The first is the Sea Cadets. We do support them. The Lake Association utilizes this $5,500 to offset the cost of paying someone to do their checks at the boat landing for invasive species. I've had some conversations with the folks over there, and they are looking to bump that up, but they chose not to do that this year. We pay the American Legion for the flags that go out on the cemeteries during Memorial Day. 16.5 has been the standard donation to the food cupboard. We do set aside $1,000 for recycling and waste. That's because every year the town participates in a hazardous waste take-back day, and the costs associated with that are generally about between $800 and $1,000. We have benefited from Lakewood Theater, and so we give to them as a community giving at $5,000. And then the new one this year is a $3,000 request for funds to the Madison Business Alliance. The Madison Business Alliance, as many of you know, has been around for over 10 years. They have never asked for funds from the town, but on the other hand, they've never had a paid administrator, and finally they do. I've been encouraging them to find somebody to be their administrator, and this person does it on a part-time basis. She does a very good job with it. And so now with that administrator in place, they're asking for $3,000 from the town as a donation. The other one we did last year was we had a request from the St. Sebastian Cemetery to see if the town would offer $1,000 to them as they try to maintain the sites of many Madison residents and Madison veterans in that cemetery.
That's a donation, right, Tim?
That is a donation. We don't
Has to
pay.
be.
We don't pay for mowing or anything like
Right,
that.
it has to be a donation.
That's correct. The next section for community programs is a breakdown of general assistance. We have 5 categories: heating, fuel, food and personal items, rent assistance, utility assistance, and new over the last 5 years is burial and cremation. That one can add up pretty quickly. But you see what we've spent so far this year on heating fuel is surprisingly low. We've only spent $1,400 to help folks with heating fuel this year, and we budgeted $8,000. Part of the reason for that is there's still a ton of federal money out there that KV Cap has. And most everybody that's really needed heating assistance has gotten it through KV Cap. The other thing is we receive donations from a couple different services, and we've been able to help people that don't qualify for general assistance, but also can't afford to pay $7 a gallon for K1. So we've been able to help some folks with those other programs. So budgeting, I'm gonna budget the same number overall for general assistance, but really where our focus is gonna be more on rent assistance than on oil, because I believe those federal funds are still gonna be there next year. And then finally, we have service organizations that provide services in our community, the Anson Madison Senior Citizens, the Humane Society, Hospice Volunteers, and Spectrum Generations. So, and those numbers are up a little bit across the board. Any questions on page 10?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm not familiar with the Madison Business Alliance. What do they do for the town that would warrant a $3,000 payment?
So instead of having a local chamber of commerce, the Business Alliance operates as kind of a pseudo chamber for Madison businesses. So they have they have members that pay dues, and the dues are very small, about $25 a year, and they probably have about 85 to 90 members. They do the best they can to promote your business within Madison. And I can certainly get you in touch with someone if you'd like to know more about the Business Alliance for your business.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Anything else on page 10? All right, home stretch. So page 11 is town-owned property, and the town-owned property includes the building you're sitting in right now, the playgrounds, East Madison Boat Landing, some signs out at Clow's Corner, and then 55 Weston Avenue where we maintain the ice rink. So this building is going to need some help, and whether we get it through grant money or congressional direct spending or what. The electricity for this building is pretty much the same. Heating, we spend 4,000 gallons a year to heat this building, and it's mainly because those windows are 70 years old. And the doors, you can feel the wind blow through both doors. Those election workers keep the heat up to a crazy amount. This thing was 64 degrees in here the other
Not me anymore.
So, I took that number of 315 times 4,000 gallons, and you know, we're already up to, there's another bill in there, but we don't have a March bill yet, and we're up to $7,000 spent already in that $7,000 line. Water and sewer is about the same. Repairs and maintenance, I wanted to bump that. We're gonna overspend this line this year, mainly because we had a 5-year sprinkler system inspection that I wasn't aware of that was $1,500. And these numbers don't include the probably $5,000 to $8,000 we spent to repair the pipes downstairs when they burst, when you had that cold night. Some of that will be covered by insurance, but we're gonna overrun this line for sure. Mowing is a contracted amount, janitorial is contracted, and security, we do have security for this building. For the Main Street playground, we do pay for maintenance. For years, I had some high school kids help me. I've been having a hard time since I've run out of Harper boys. There was only like 6 of them, and every year they gave the job to their brother. But they're all gone now. We do pay for electricity. That is for the lights, the street lights that are up there. That's separate from the street light account. We pay contract amount for mowing and portable toilets throughout the year. Over at the East Madison Boat Landing, we do pay for portable toilets year-round, so the people that are there ice fishing and also people that are there during the summer, those toilets are always there. Mowing the town sign, we've had to run into this. Years ago, we had a volunteer that would mow the little strip at Clow's Corner for us, but that person's no longer around, and so Bobby Bishop mows that. He also trims the grass at the granite sign by Ken's when you're coming into town. So he does that for a minimal amount of money. The ice rink, I did put some money in for repairs or maybe moving or maybe discussing what we're going to do with the ice rink. And then the mowing is a contracted amount there. So that town-owned property line is up from $26,000 to $37,000, mainly because of heating fuel, and repairs that we need to start budgeting for this building. So if you're on the bottom of page 11, you'll see that overall from the original 23 budget to the proposed 24 budget is an increase of 14% or $431,000, 432, call it 431,908. I got one more page to go. Any questions before we get there? All right, last page is capital. This is where we put aside money for highway and purchases and road surface management. And last year, we put aside $50,000 for sidewalk and $50,000 for cemetery. So this year, I'm proposing less than we spent last year. And the biggest part of that is the fire truck. The fire truck was $160,000. I did talk with Don about it, and after going back and forth on a couple things, he decided not to put any money in capital for anything this year. That doesn't mean it won't be in the future years, but not this year. We have taken our remaining amount of purchases for highway equipment, and we have put in an order for a single axle truck. And then in addition to that, I'm recommending we put $150,000 in highway equipment for a wheeler, which is a double axle vehicle. I've learned so much about trucks. Then road surface management is basically your paving projects. And I put some of this out there on the back table, but I did make this up for the board today. I just got this today. This is what I'm proposing that we do for paving this year. And this is based on the road surface management tool that they use up at the highway garage. So this is always delicate because you always want to under-promise and over-deliver. So if you hear your road on here, don't say, yay, I'm definitely going to get it paved, because you might not. I've learned a little bit about trolley line drive, and I know that's a hot topic button, but I am going to recommend that we pave the apron, which is basically the end where trolley line meets 43. Thank you. Boardman Road, that's right across from Bagley and heads into Solon. Beach Road is the road that goes down between the Lakewood Inn and Salmon Road. Of course, Naomi Avenue is over on that part of town off of Hayden Street. I've talked about the Bean Street rebuild, so that's a little separate. River Road, if we finalize moving River Road over from the pit, that would come out of TIF at about $25,000. In town here, we're looking at Spring Street, Summer Street, Thomas Street, Town Road, and John Street. So in this $230,000, that would take care of all but 3 of those. And then I'm recommending we have some money left over. If we do it before June or the end of June, we could maybe fit Spring, Summer, and Town Street into what we have in the bank, and then raise money from taxation for the other projects. All right, any questions?
We'll also have this for next time too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And actually, we can probably make that an agenda item to talk more about capital paving and so forth.
Okay, any questions for the town manager? And if there are any questions going forward, please email him or ask him before the next meeting. So we're looking at police, the next meeting, road surface management,
And code.
and code enforcement. Okay. Questions, anybody? Very informative, Mr. Town Manager, thank you. All right, select board concerns, Mr. Moody.
No, the only thing that I'd like to mention is that we've been listening to a realistic budget, but at the same time, it's a 10% increase in budget, which on the average house of 100,000 is going to boost your taxes about $288, and $150,000 house is going to go up to about $429. No matter what budget you get, there's always some fat
you can pull somewhere to bring this down a little bit. And whereas, I mean, we have a numerous number of citizens that are on Social Security, I would like to hope we could just cut this down a little bit, just for the taxpayers that are having a hard time to keep up. That's all.
Bean? Looking?
Yes, on the recall ballot, they had they had like the second sentence on that. They had that the teachers are exempt from this. School board members, I mean. They're exempt from being recalled.
Are you referring to the ordinance?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And I think that should be eliminated from there.
I'll look into that, but I think that's a state rule. So, I think you can't have that in your ordinance.
I was on the net today and I didn't find anything said that. It said that there's 19 states that can take a state official and recall them, but the rest of the states don't allow it. Maine's one of the ones that don't allow it. So it says elected official, and they're elected officials.
So if I'm understanding you right, you want to look into the ordinance and why it has school board members
I want
exempt?
to just take it out.
Okay, so you want me to look into taking out the exemption for school board members?
Right.
Okay.
Mrs. Dwyer?
I'm good, thank you.
All right. Citizens' concerns? Citizens' concerns? All right, we'll look to go into executive session pursuant to personnel matter pursuant to 1 MRS Section 4056A, the continuation of the town manager review. Okay, we're going to executive session under 1 MRS Section 4056A, continue the town manager review. All those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. We're in executive session at 7:56.